Sophia Bennett was standing by the hotel window, looking out over the horizon at the majestic snow-capped Alps. The opulent resort where she was staying served as the location for the yearly financial conference, which brought together the world's top financial miners. The serene and beautiful scenery stood in sharp contrast to the icy figures. Sophia was ready to engage in intensive talks inside, so this conference wasn't just another occasion. A fantastic chance to get INV-ERS for her fledgling project, which she had put her all in Tuntu.ia, was a rising star in the finance industry at the age of 28, with an outstanding record in the field. Despite hailing from a low-income family, she worked tirelessly to achieve success and intelligence, overcoming one career milestone after another. Severance and desire for success had led her to this point, where she was surrounded by million-dollar guys wearing fancy clothes. Clothes.re-se with Jasila to handshake, but Sophia realized that regardless of talent, the financial industry was a harsh place for her to compete, and she had to constantly show herself. As soon as she arrived at the hotel, she encountered an unforeseen issue. The hotel receptionist apologized and explained that the only remaining option was to cancel the reservation, as all the rooms were already booked. Was booked in the same room as another visitor. Sophia scowled, instantly becoming irritated because she had carefully planned this vacation, and vacation stance was very different from what she had expected. She was taken aback when she unexpectedly found herself sharing a room with Ethan Caldwell, an icy and cunning individual. Ethan was her unexpected roommate. He was the CEO of Caldwell Enterprises, a renowned brand in the financial industry. His strategic acumen was complemented by his haughtiness and distant manner. The family owned the biggest investment conglomerates globally, with networks extending from the US to, despite having two of Europe's riches, power and influence, Ethan remained the duty of maintaining his family's legacy, which caused him to become aloof. And as Sophia entered shared suite, she noticed Ethan's piercing gaze from where he was emotionally distant from everyone else. He was seated Ather armchair close to the fireplace, and rather than looking shocked, he lifted his glass of alcohol and said, "Offks like we're unexpected," in a cold, dispassionate tone. However, his tone of indifference only exacerbated Sophia's frustration. She had never been fond of Ethan, due to his innate nature, in part because she saw him as a rival when she found it difficult to pitch her concepts and deep potential investors. Ethan was able to easily obtain finance, since she felt in financing sincere sense because of the powerful name of his family. Letting out, she whispered to Herselout, "This is," as she pulled her bag toward her bed. Ethan looked at her frobed corners of his eye, anticipating a fascinating stay. His lips formed a faint eerie smile, but he remained silent. Despite Sophia's obvious eance, he was cautious about sharing a place with her because of her excessive ambition, whether in business or ambition. In circumstances like this, Ethan was never one to back down from a challenge. Outside the window, challenge Yuli disappeared behind the alpine peaks, illuminating the sky with gold and purple hues. The following day was the Ahuez, start of the financial conference, but tension was already building in the suite between the two. Since Sophia and Ethan were Petu, who valued their privacy, they were forced to put up with one another. For the following 4-day, another tries to ignore Ethan's presence, concentrated on going over presentation materials for tomorrow, because she understood that in order to be successful, she needed to maintain a clear head and avoid any distractions. It was more difficult said than done, particularly as Ethan watches Hedon, an unreadable expression while sipping his wine slowly. "What leads you to Ethan?" abruptly interrupted the operative silence throughout this session by asking, and Sophia paused. Before replying to investigate, F paused. Spects. I have a promising. Ethan nodded slowly, saying, promising a sward investors to believe in this project. His eyes darkened, and he could project. Ophia's charismatic, passionate and resolute nature, yet in the for success Sophia, desire alone was rather sufficient in the competitive world of finance, stood up looking him in the eye. Finance. I won't let anyone stand in my way, with unyielding resolve. Ethan leaned back in his chair and resolved. Eyebrow, admiring her audacity. It dawned on him that the first night at Audacity would not be as boring as he had initially thought, would not be as boring as he had first assumed. The next 4 days would be past a period of deep stillness, during which they were both lost in their own thoughts. Ambitions, but neither could have pre-thoughts. This minor annoyance would quickly turn into a pivotal moment in their lives, as two individuals who appeared to be worlds apart began to develop an unexpected bond. Sophia took a sip of her wine, relishing the bond they shared. The flavor of the wine lingered in her mind as she contemplated the soft lighting reflecting off her glass, obstacles to overcome, and the man across Froglass, who was getting harder to ignore. Welcome. Please let us know from where city you are. Welcome O'Day's story, and remember in the subscribe to our channel, The Financial. The following morning, in a formal and busy financial letting, the conference officially began for entrepreneurs. The conference was attended by global financial leaders and investors who are also entrepreneurs. The grand hall was filled with enthusiastic discussions about groundbreaking business strategies, enormous numbers, and groundbreaking ventures. With fascinating confidence, Sophia entered discussed, ring a sophisticated grey suit and exuded enthusiasm. Conscious of her desire to win over potential enthusiasm, Sophia looked for opportunities to further her aspirational endeavor. However, the fact that she was reluctant to work with the famous CEO Ethan Caldwell added an additional level of tension. On stage, Ethan demonstrated his strength as a leader, and his presentation on Caldwell Enterprises received enthusiastic applause and careful attention to every word he said. Special emphasis was given to his expansion strategy. BZ Deutsche IA soon identified the flaws in his plan. When the conversation started, Sophia didn't hold back, open pressing her thoughts about Caldwell's growth plan. Businesses rely too much on purchasing tech businesses. WIP plan, not fully evaluating the dangers, don't they? Do you believe that focusing too much on one aspect of your business could compromise its integrity, its essential values? The hall entered a brief. Ethan turned to face her in quiet, his eyes cold yet pierce-briefed. A small smile came on his face, on his lips, but it was unable to hide the difficulty that Bennett was facing. In my view, assessing risks is essential, but it's equally important to have the flexibility to seize opportunities. The companies we invest in must undergo rigorous scrutiny. Sophia calmly replied, refusing to back down and standing firm on her screening. Despite your optimism, your entire investment portfolio may suffer his faculties if you don't have a suitable exit strategy. The business faces substantial risks, especially considering your recent investment strategy. Rumors echoed through the hall, with Ethan stating, cash flow isn't sufficient to report operations for the next 2 quarters. His brows were slightly pinched in surprise at Sophia's profound D of his company's finances. Nevertheless, he remained calm, but Sophia could see the glimmer finances D on his face after. After a short silence, Ethan said, "It looks like you've done your reafter on my company." Sophia shrugged. "I like to do my own." The tension between them persisted. Throughout, shrugged Arentz, before they ownerted the game. But Sophia didn't allow it to divert her attention. She kept networking with possible investors, and Ethan kept his eyes elsewhere. After a hard day, Sophia sank into the hotel room, where she elsewhere, anxiously wandered closer her. silently pondering what had happened during the conversation she'd a closer to her, parked while lounging on the luxurious sofa Ethan, but she had also forced him to pay attention when she heard a tap on sofa door, interrupting her train of thought. When Sophia Ethan opened it and stood there, his expression as icy as usual, but there Sophia glimmer of he acknowledged in a quiet voice that you had some good points regarding the AI investment. And Sophia arched an eyebrow. This was the first time she had ever heard Ethan Caldwell mention anything eyebrow of her, and she was quite astonished. She crossed her arms and leaned against the doorframe. "I can help you," astonished, confidently. "I don't," Ethan scowled. Sophia laughed softly, moved aside and opened her laptop, saying, "I think scowl.se enough for that." She displayed a financial study she had previously prepared. Ethan entered slow that, gaze focused on the screen. "Examined your business's financial reports." Sophia kept browsing the information screen. "Investment might be a double-edged sword. Without a suitable plan, your current cash flow isn't enough to thwart it for very long. You risk suffering large losses if you decide to leave or restructure." Ethan crossed along, arms, examining each detail Sophia offered. He was first dubious, progressively crossed aware of the breadth and accuracy of her research. She wasn't dubious. Examining figures. She grasped the market and anticipated certain hazards that his financial team had failed to grasp. "That is your strategy?" He questioned, his tone more solemn now, and Sophia smiled slightly as she looked in strategy is. "I have Mulder's suggestions to rearrange the investment portfolio and maximize cash flow. Find strategy multipliers. If you're open to hearing, I can help you steer clear of an unneckflowy downfall." Ethan nodded for a minute, his eye hearing Itonga, displaying the haughtiness unnecessary did. Sophia was more than just a rival, and it was the first time he felt like someone truly undid the weight he carried. She was a wise, perceptive woman who was unquestionably passionate about what she did. It carried genuine smile tugged at the corners of his lips as he added, "All right, I'll did." The 2 rare hours of exploring, investigating the financial specifics, evaluating risk markers, and creating possible technology showed her commitment and professionalism, while gradually realizing that it might have prevented him from seeing important viewpoints. The tension in the room gradually transformed into a feeling of respect for one another and cooperation as the room's lights formed gentle shadows and the night became darker. Sophia reclined and sat in her chair. I sigh. "So do you still believe that I'm just someone who enjoys causing trouble?" Ethan's face were chair of sigh. Ethan showed respect as he gazed at her. "I think you've helped me with trouble. You've helped me in many ways." Sophia laughed quietly, but she acknowledged that he wasn't as haughty as she had first believed. Seeing that beneath his icy appearance, he was a guy burdened by his family's expectations and the weight of his enormous obligations, she was unable to feel a little sympathy for him. They had been rivals at first, but now there seemed to be a hazy connection between them. After a long day of heated discussions, Sophia and Ethan returned to their hotel room. As Sophia poured 2 glasses of red wine, the opulent room fell silent, save for the gentle clink in conference. Asses. She set a glass before Ethan, the rich aroma filling the chilly alpine air. "We have been debating all glasses. Her eyes are expressing a thoughtful calm. Perhaps it's time to unwind a air." Sophia grinned, her lips quivering into a faint challenge. Ethan looked at calm, or a while, then picked up the glass and delicately swirled the wine before to faint. He exhaled quietly for a man, as he sipped the bold flavor that had traveled across his palate. Such moments were rare due to the constant pressures of work. Ethan made a slight movement on the leather table, but his gaze remained fixed on Sophia. Sophia smiled, her eyes soft to work. "Did you get into finance? I presume it wasn't only for the love of numbers." Sophia okayed softly as she gazed, softening, glass in her palm, but primarily because she didn't want to go back. Numbers. I was impoverished as a child, living with little food and only debt. I made a self-promise to myself that I would never let it happen again. He had no idea that the aspiration-eye woman in front of him had such a challenging past, yet it crept into heart. Again. "About you?" Sophia asked. He saw Sophia in a deeper and more fascinating light. She gently lingers her gaze on his attractive but dejected face. Ethan Eyelight ugged quietly or loudly, but his laughter carried a weight. "It was never my intention," he continued, holding a glass in his hand that belonged to my family. "Having run Caldwell Enterprises for 3 generations, I am responsible for not only my personal obligations, but also the family's thousands of workers. And sometimes I feel like a puppet being manipulated by the demands of Ethan." She responded, "I'm just being myself." And their bond grew stronger, became closer as the distance between them gradually disappeared. Sophia sensed the intensity in Ethan's gaze, as if he were trying to peer into her soul at that moment, surpassing all limitations of background and status. Ethan reached out and gently brushed a strand of her lovely hair as the competition subsided. Ethan made a tentative yet gentle stroke with his fingers, but Sophia didn't respond. She simply moved. Her eyes were subsided. His breath warmed her skin, followed by a soft yet tender kiss. Overwhelmed with want, all of the smoothed, strain, and walls vanished. Ethan and Sophia were the only 2 remaining business rivals and Fakakis, Hat Night. 2 lonely hearts found comfort in one another. The vanished, to even count the number of times they whispered to one another. Tifakadis, of their bodies entwined with each other's names in ragged gasps, drove away the alpine cold outside the... Only the wind blew through another covered landscape at night in the mountains, and the rhythmic Sophia rested quietly in Ethan's arms, her head thetting against his chest, their hearts pounding as dawn came closer. Ethan stroked his finger rhythmic over her hair, sensing a deeper sensation than any passing. His previous relationship wasn't one of possession, closer, fishiality. Rather, it was, Sophia whispered, something real. Maybe we'll regret this passing awning. Sophia's voice was unsure, so Ethan just pulled her tighter and told her was focus on the present rather ethereal. She realized that this nigh morning tea last forever, but for the moment she closed her eyes and felt a rare sense of peace. The fact that it was the future as sufficient, as snow kept falling outside the window, covering the Zord in white in silence, as though hiding the true peace, only the both of them were aware. And that evening Sophia and Ethan made a window, impression on one another. Additional feelings that were both strange and incredibly desirable, as well as the start of the morning light, which neither dared to identify, came another. The heavy curtains of the opulent hotel room. Sophia opened her eyes slowly as the first cenophion struck her, throwing a gentle glow over the tangled linens on the bed. She was shocked by the touch of room, his firm back next to her, and her eyes widened as shattered recollections of the passionate kisses, burning touches, and Bednutton's warm embrace filled her thoughts the night before. Sophia tried to settle herself by biting her lips and breath against her ear. "What have I finished?" she thought, and as a rush of panic rose inside her, before up slowly. She pulled the sheets around herself and looked at Ethan, who was still haveth a mixture of confusion and worry. Stern's features often relaxed in the slowly arning light, free of the icy apathy he frequently portrayed. Taking a deep breath, she realized she need worry back to reality, because last night was only She convinced herself that her moment of weakness was a mistake that would never be repeated. However, despite her best efforts to persuade herself, her heart raced one. She remembered how Ethan had gazed at Sophia, gradually slipped out of her last night, repeated need and sincere desire. Trying not to wake him, she gathered her strewn-about clothes off the floor and went Seattly to the bed. She leaned against the chilly mirror in the bathroom, as she desire. He door behind her, her reflection displaying the chaos. Inside her, Ethan was already awake and lean abed. Inst the wall when she came out of the bathroom calm and dressed. Headboard observing her with an inscrutable look. Her chaos enized her as though attempting to, Sophia broke the rules last night, so we need forget about it in order to dressed. And her thinking. Silence at first, her tone carefully bland. It was simply an error on Ithato part. Raised an eyebrow, and although his need countenance was composed, there was a deeper methinking. His eyes. He said slowly, his voice heavy from the long night, if that's what you part too. But do you honestly believe that Sophia made a mistake by pressing her lips together and Averes, his eyes? We both know it. It shouldn't have occurred. Ifan nodded, then reached butt and put on his shirt that was thrown over the chair. Despite his lingering sense of loss, he maintained a cold tone as it. I left the room, acting as though nothing had happened. Carrying a burden none of them wanted to admit in chair. She paused. Sophia poured herself into her work at the conference, using it as a diversion from the uncertainty that were happened. Ali spent the morning taking careful notes, going to present pause, and meeting possible investors, but she couldn't help but notice the curious looks Whispers was getting. Was knowing looks the half, which is subtly but definitely visible throughout the hall. Possibles gave Sophia the impression that everyone had already heard what I had getting. Voice, knowing read just loudly enough for her to hear, as Ethan Caldwell and she left Thal L. This morning appears to be the Sophia clenched her fists, forcing herself to maintain her say, sure as the financial battle suddenly morphed into a romantic affair. She passed by with her head held high, seemingly unaware that a clenched building inside. But Ethan wasn't exempt from scrutiny either, as the press was already rife with rumors as affair to the conference room. Was able to take pictures of him and Sophia leaving the hotel together, and the picture exempt. Appeared on major The Secret is financial publications with eye-catching headlines. Relations Room. Tween Sophia Bennett, a financial specialist, and CEO Ethan Caldwell. Ethan, the new power couple of the fin major world, sighed while clutching the newspaper, his face gedlines. Cuse. Was accustomed to the media interfering in his affairs, but this time Caldwell involved. He did power want to be a part of the pandemonium that followed him, so Sophia entered the meeting serious, threw the newspaper onto the table, her eyes piercing but her face composed. She quinvolved. What are we going to do about this? Ethan leaned back in his chair and studied her intently, his voice cooler than normal. We might choose to ignore it or to explain why. Sophia gave a dry laugh at how Ethan's eyes narrowed when this. Them I was merely an accident. Sophia stopped silent as her voice dropped an normal. Don't think that was an accident. She briefly softened her look, drier, straightening up and regaining her poise. So we must keep our ether accident teed her for a while before nodding, if that's what you want. Moving on. Sophia re-accident. Regular life as an independent financial consultant following the conclusion of the conference. She focused on other endeavors, attempting to ignore any sentimental attachments to Eton. But what she didn't expect was the speed with which the financial business began to hear reports about conference, ship with the well-known CEO. Leading economic news sources started covering her and Ethan's attendance at the co-expectee, with pictures of the two of them departing the hotel together, eye-catching headlines like "The Stunning Financial CEO." Sultant, and the media was inundated with stories about the icy CEO's power struggle or calcul with romance. Ethan's it didn't take competitors long to start spreading rumors that Sophia was just a gold digger, using his andections to land profitable partnerships, while Ethan's business, Caldwell Enterprises, already Ethan's following a risky investment that failed to generate the anticipated returns. Today, fact-digger dotting shareholder pressure and skepticism about his leadership and skills started to cause some serious already, struggling whether Ethan was allowing his feelings to influence his business choices. Sophia facing genuinely a business partner or only a publicity gimmick to divert attention from internal serious board meetings became more frequent, requiring Ethan to devote a lot of time to resolving issues, and T. Bennett stopped the rumors. But Sophia tried, but it wasn't easy because the media kept digging into their relationship. To maintain her pro-Morional concentration, but she couldn't deny that her reputation was suffering and that clients were but to inquire difficult inquiries, and her lack of professionalism caused some relationship contracts to be postponed. Miss Bennett, a possible investor, called her in the morning when she was in her office. "I'm impressed with your inquirifications, but considering the current press attention, could you reassure us that you'll be postponed? Are you dedicated to our initiative, or are you too busy with personal affairs?" Statement seemed like a quith of Sophia's dignity, since, despite her efforts, people continued to see her through the prism of a lad completely in a dispute with Ethan's initiative. At night, Sophia sat quietly while affairs. The accumulation of rejection emails in her mailbox in front of her laptop, she understood that the profession she had fought of hard to develop might fail if she didn't move quickly due night. Han Kulsatens Sophia's increasing distance in the days after one impetuous night. After the meeting, slapped off his calls and letters about possible partnerships, concluding that Ethan chose to confront her one evening at order to let things to go out of control. Ethan unexpectedly showed up at Sophia Night Cafe where she worked. He pulled up a chair across from her, spoke quietly, and Sophia sighed lurely exhausted. "How long will you continue to avoid me? I could keep get control D into your mess, Ethan. You know this isn't good for us." Ethan looked at her. His keen eyes, used to examining financial figure and were filled with something exhausted or found for a considerable amount of time. "Sincerely, Sophia, you know that I'm not the type of man that allows the media to control my choices. To collaborate with you due to your skills, not the rumors," she said. "The issue, Ethan, is that those around you don't stem your viewpoint." Took her hand softly across the table and held it firmly in his voto unwaveringly. "I'll stop these rumors and demonstrate to everyone that our Sophia stared, Dow said. Our partnership, which is founded on professionalism, rather viewpoint, tour." Her hands were interlaced, her heart trembling, but her hisarts were still clear. "Ethan, we need time to let this all go. I have to." Ethan motionless for a while before nodding, saying, "I want to concentrate on my work with conjecture, bound by anyone's name." Even while his eyes conveyed his hesitation, Sophia understood that Ethan genuinely wanted her to stay. Beltowed leaving him behind was the wisest course of action for the time being, in order to prevent needless scrutiny. Therefore she put a stop to all Caldwell Enterprises-related projects and look for new opportunities elsewhere. Day final morning before her, Sophia sent Ethan a quick email saying thank you for everything before she departed. "I hope that things will be different when to meet again, because this is only a necessary pause." Ethan opened the email with a heavy heart, full of unsaid grievances, since he knew that Sophia was leaving. Sophia's decision to leave was due to her desire to avoid being left behind. She was involved in power conflicts, not merely rumors. Sophia, who was always paused, packed her things and left the city in silence, taking both of her lovely recollections with her. The city appeared to be a lovely location for her to put the past behind her and concentrate on her work. She quickly received an offer, and she had the opportunity to recreate herself at a prominent financial consulting firm where no one was or York. She was reminded of her previous relationship with Ethan. She established her reputation and spent the first few weeks away from the scrutiny of the business world. During her hectic time in New York, Sophia immersed herself in new projects, late nights, and endless meetings. She uses her continuous activities as a diversion from Ethan's work sessions. However, in spite of her best attempts, she occasionally found her gaze, king at her phone in the vain hope of a message or a call from Ethan. But all she received was a cold smeetings when a sudden wave of sickness struck Sophia on a cold morning sessions. About to go for work, she hurried to the as. She stared at her reflection in the bathroom, feeling the bile rise in her throat and cold sweat gather on her forehead. She told the stillness in the mirror that it was most likely just stress or a change in surroundings. But the symptoms continued throughout the course of the following few days, accompanied by an unprecedented level of physical sensitivity. 1. Wee forehead. Afternoon, Sophia started to wonder more when she reluctantly stood in a drugstore aisle with a pregnancy test, symptom-shaking hands. She thought, "This can't be. I was careful, wasn't I?" She recalled the night in Zurich when sensitivity to ice inside of her reminded her that nothing was impossible. Without any forethought or planning, she and Ethan had become completely absorbed in each other. Returning to her flat, Sophia cautiously made her way to the bathroom, and opened it with unrecht emotions. The package, she closed her eyes, inhaled deeply, and then impossible at the outcome. Sophia collapsed onto the chilly lavatory floor as two stricken planning lines gazed back at her. She was unable to accept the reality that she was pregnant during those day emotions. Heart was racing in her chest. Following a flurry of emotions, Sophia went to Outcome for a more in-depth assessment, while holding on to the dim suspicion that the test was flawed her .me way. But after the physician verified that she was more than 8 weeks pregnant, as she held the ultrasonist out in her hands and gazed at the small figure developing inside, reality finally set in. She was overcome with worry and doubt about how she would ever become a mother. What would Ethan say if he knew? But in the midst of the anxiety pregnant, piece of her unexpectedly blossomed in her heart, couldn't suppress the joy of knowing that she had a tiny life inside in her. A part of herself and Ethan, sitting in a Sophia stared at the ultramother. Mage shone in front of her in the calm cafe close to the clinic, feeling caught between she had left behind two worlds. Heart fee she had attempted to create for herself and the indisputable truth she now held. Zurich wanted to start again, but Steiny had other ideas and took her in a direction she never would have imagined, so Sophia didn't. Her hands trembled betweentel as she considered what to say to Ethan about raising the child alone. Touched her stomach as she realized that, her life would never be the same again, regardless of the decision she made. During restless evenings, Sophia debated whether to inform Ethan that she was aware of his whole masculinity. Under constant pressure from her lone tea holders and family, would he even be prepared to bring a child into his already overpowering life? Pictures of Ethan at made, where he is under pressure from. She remembered the times he stood quietly by the window. His eyes reflect masculinity. His companionship flashed across her head. Concerns he didn't express because Sophia Dito want to add to his burdens, and she most definitely didn't want their child to be sucked into the vicious fromtrum of the business world, she persuaded herself. This is my life. I can be a Sophia, made the decision to conceal her head, she from her mother without his assistance, and severed all communication with Ethan. Nonetheless, her heart swant too long to whenever she saw news reports about him and pictures of Ethan that she found herself stopping to stare life, for too long at important financial discussions, and he missed his rare glance. Sophia Consistance.L loved him because of his smiles and the warmth he had showed her throughout the little time together, but for she had to set those emotions asiate for the benefit of their child's future. Do you still follow Sophia's journey? Agree with her choice. Please leave a glance.jits in the space provided below. Sophia started modifying her life too. She reduced her job hours, looked for remote opportunities, began researching everything she could to get ready for motherhood. Her tiny flat became filled with parent journey. Despite her desire to make an informed decision, she felt compelled to learn more about pregnancy. Despite her efforts to be resilient, loneliness occasionally seeped into motherhood. Every time she saw other women in the clinic with their partners, she felt hollow inside. She struggled pregnancy, egg, or morning sickness, and wished Ethan was present, but she reminded herself that she had made the right decision. In the stillness of midnight, when everything was still, Ethan's store need to know about this child. Sophia was reserved, always wondering if Ethan understood. Would he react? Would he be content? Or would he consider this just another burden? In her complex life, Sophia convinced herself that she needed to pursue her own path, while Ethan had his own to follow. There was a tiny hope in her he-child. One day, they might have a child together. Ethan would eventually find his way to them, tenderly hugging their child with the love Sophia knew he was capable of. She placed a hand on her stomach and whispered, "I'll take care of you, my love." Despite her attempts to appear confident, she knew that everything would be all right in the end. No matter how strong she was you-born. To ignore the emptiness in her eyes, which revealed her actual thoughts of despair. 7 months after the Financial conference in the Alps, Sophia had departed London due to Ethan's love, and travelled to New York with the intention of starting a new life. Wattie threw herself into her profession, striving to bury Ethan's memories in that fateful night, but despite her best effort, despair was unable to deny the indisputable truth was developing inside of her. Every fluttering kick served as a reminder that her belly was getting bigger every day. Sophia had preserved this reminder of the guy she had loved and still loved. She understood in private that Ethan was a responsible man, but he was also driven by indisputable, become a burden or an encumbrance to his family legacy and corporate empire. Unwelcome tie in his already complex life day appeared to be going well until destiny stepped in again. Sophia went to an Eclov. Summit in New York with the intention of locating Ethan, but she never thought she might run into him. Possible backers for her business venture, but as soon as she entered the empire conference room, her breath, Ethan Caldwell, who was caught in her throat, was displaying his typical manner and imposing appearance while speaking to a group of investors. He had not changed much and was still quite powerful. Fire, captivated, spun on her heels in an attempt to evade detection, but it was too late. Ethan had sea breath, and in contrast to what she had anticipated, his eyes froze in disbelief or composure, eyed her obvious transformation. Despite being covered by a loose dress, Sophia's tummy was not completely hidden. Powerful, heart was racing as she gripped her purse, and Ethan's voice was low. And overcome with shock, she had her lips to force a calm face. "Hello, Ethan," she whispered, but he remained silent. His gaze remained on her transformation. Nally questioned, "Are you okay?" Sophia hastily replied, "Quieter, I'm fine hidden." Nan attempt to cut the conversation short, but Ethan wasn't ready to. He let illo and moved closer, speaking in a calm but controlled tone. The inquiry, "Are you pregnant?" caused Sophia to pause, silent, darting away. Ethan's jaw tightened and his grey eyes darkened as she, "Okay. Ed, don't think this is the right place to talk about it. With resolve, we must speak after the conference." But Toan wouldn't let Sophia try to flee once more, but he caught her tone. Hotel corridor, where the dark. His tense face was covered in long shadows for illumination. "Sophia, how long did you intend to hide this from me? I didn't plan to keep it forever, but I assumed yet." Diant, Sophia said, her eyes showing signs of tiredness. I need to be confident in my ability to handle everything independently. Ethan closely examined her. He didn't need to realize that his normally calm face was displaying emotions as he repeated, his voice heavy. This baby is... Sophia Loam down and said, "You don't get to make this decision alone." Her hand was automatically clutching tiredness. Ethan, you have a whole business to manage and an empire to defend. But I didn't shake his head. His face was clouded with disappointment. Want to be a burden? Sophia, you never even gave me a chance, and your words threatened to make me regard you and our child as a burden. I alone said what was best for us both, Ethan, but Sophia stopped them from spilling. Moved closer, saying in a stern but kind voice that it wouldn't be best for us if I was present. Sophia was unable to react to you and burden. But she knew in her heart that he was correct. However, she continued to be afraid that Ethan was merely burden, out of duty rather than love, after a protracted silence. Sophia felt a soft misspilling, sighed her tummy as she looked down at it, as though the baby was stretched between them, present. To remind her that this was about more than just her, Ethan. I want to protect you, to correct, do the same for our kid, whose voice has softened. Glanced up into his eyes, trying to find the truth in what he was silence. I'm afraid, that you would only view me as a duty if I told you sooner, Ethan moaned softly. I acknowledge them to work has eaten her. His touch warmed her face. Sophia could see Ethan. There was sincerity in his words, but it doesn't mean I don't have space for you in my heart. However, Sophia was also aware that things wouldn't be that easy. I need time, Ethan. He no afraid. Ithatis' expression being one of quiet resolve, as if she had whispered. So softly, Bem staying put, because I want to do what's right. Sophia gazed face.m for a considerable amount of time, her heart trembling at Ethan's perseverance, knowing that this elifing would change in an instant, and maybe this time she should avoid rushing Ethan. Acted encounter at the had compelled Ethan, who doesn't give up easy, to whispered Ruth that Sophia had concealed for the previous 7 right, decided that this time he would not allow her to endure this alone and demonstrate that he was not only a capable Thessinusman, but additionally, Ethan was a responsible man and a parent who would stop at nothing to protect their the kid. Long-staged and unexpected press conference a few days after speaking with Sophia, which captured the focus of Stamont's, Sess and the media, while he stood at the platform wearing a dapper black suit. With a sharp stare softened by an unusual genuine, but Ethan didn't hold back or try to sidestep inquiries as he grabbed the microphone as soon as the first question regarding the rumors was posed and firmly stated, "Yes, I am going to be a parent," camera captured continuously, and the room fell silent. Reporters asked questions in quick succession, and Ethsuit set his hand to signal silence while glancing around the audience. I realize that many people may be surprised by this news, but for me, it's the most significant. My voice is steady, yet emotional. Sophia Bennett, my child's mother, and I will raise our child together. Together, we will raise our child in silence and ensure a stable future for our family. Sophia observed the press conference from her apartment. She never expected the audience to openly admit the feelings that were causing her heart to overflow. Ethan embraced their child without hesitation, ignoring the emotional pressure. Members or his image, but was this deciding on a lasting solid together? In the news conference, Ethan spent more time with Sophia. At first, his abrupt attention made her uncomfortable, and embarpartment.ut Ethan was. He persisted in attending every prenatal checkup, refusing to let her initial flood. Tion deter him. Sophia remarked, "You don't have to be here every time." But she secretly hoped that she would arrive on time, accompanied by a warm cup of tea. Grateful for his constancy, Ethan simply smiled, helped her into the chair and waited calmly, attentively listening and asking questions each time the doctor described the baby's development. Sophia had a sense of seriousness as she asked, "What is the most important thing right now?" In order to prepare for the stage, the doctor responded, "I'm making tea. The mother stays comfortable and happy." And Ethan turned to Sophia with a silent expression. Nevertheless, he insisted on taking her home after every session, occasionally stopping at baby shops to purchase development projects such as a soft baby cushion or a pair of wool shoes whenever Sophia had reservations. Despite her remaining reservations, she couldn't stage, but smiled since Ethan didn't simply go with Sophia to her one evening. He took her to a new place where he was discreetly expressing concern for their child's future. The apartment he had discreetly set up was spacious, yet comfortable, featuring a beautifully furnished nursery with calming paint colors and everything Sophia needed. Sophia's eyes filled with tears as she stood in the center of the nursery, taking in the baby's orderly arrangement. "You did all O'Harris," she said, including the clothes, the cot, and a pile of parenting books. Ethan moved forward, his eyes full of sympathy, and questioned her with a shaking voice. "I'm serious when I say that I want our child to have the best start in life." As a result, Sophia felt a constriction in her chest, and the doubt she had been harboring gradually shifted. Sophia eventually stopped pressing because Ethan was demonstrating his commitment with books, other than simply platitudes. After Ethan left, she let higher, his voice a shaking, dent until they began talking about potential baby names. For the future life, each other, and spending peaceful evenings discussing their dreams and anxieties. One afternoon, as Sophia abruptly stopped Fade, were strolling across the park and put a palm on her belly. "Could you feel it?" she inquired. Ethan crouched next platitudes, put his palm over hers, feeling the baby's delicate movements as her eyes brightened with a warm radiance. A genuine smile spread across his face as his eyes widened in awe. It was amazing when Sophia realized that Ethan wasn't just fulfilling a duty. Rather, he was genuinely enjoying the concept of parenthood. One evening, while Sophia was reading a parenting book, she genuinely inquired about the concept. I went up and softly grasped her hand. "Sophia, I know you've been concerned about my imperfection radiance, and you to know that I'm always here for you and our child," she said, gazing away. His gaze was unblinking, a feeling of stability she hadn't had in months. And I'm sure it wasn't genuinely words no longer. It was a recognition of the new life they were going to start together. And Ethan H. Parenthood.TED, that for the first time in months, Sophia and their child were his top priorities, above his business empire. As the final stages of her pregnancy approached and they prepared for the birth of their child, Sophia felt a sense of calmness. Ethan stayed by her side, keeping them both occupied, but simply with doctor's appointments, nursery purchases, and even late-night cravings. However, Sophia never anticipated the baby announcement earlier than anticipated that night, even with all of their meticulous preparation. Sophia was Rimpire. She was reading a book on the couch when she suddenly felt a sharp pain in her abdomen. She gasped and clutched her stomach, initially thinking it was just typical contractions. However, her excitement quickly escalated, becoming more intense. Her breathing became labored, and she began to perspire profusely. She shouted out to Ethan. Ethan hurried out of his study as soon as he heard her preparation, i.e., without hesitation, he grabbed Sophia when he saw her in pain and ran to the automobile racing through the rainy hills of New York. He kept her hand close to his during the journey, and his voice was steady, yet worried. "Well, Sophie's doing fantastic. Everything will be all right." She gave a feeble nod, but her eyes were filled with fear for Ethan. For the first time in his life, Ethan became aware of the tightness of his voice. Hold, and I felt his heart tighten, was beyond his control. When Sophia arrived at the hospital, he was hurried to the birthplace where Ethan said, "I'm right here," holding her hand till the very end, his eyes full of worry as nurses and physicians fantasized about her. "Sophia, don't be scared." Ethan stood outside a delivery room with its doors closed. Ethan was filled with a flurry of emotions as he strolled through the sterile hallways of the hospital. At last, the nurse emerged, smiling broadly, congratulating both Mr. Caldwell and Sophia on the birth of a girl and a boy, both of whom are doing well. For a brief minute, Ethan stood motionless, each straining to comprehend the words as he hurried into the room and saw he was met by Sophia, who was laying one eternity, towel bed, exhausted but beaming with joy. Little Angel was in her arms. A nurse tenderly placed the other baby in Ethan's arms, and he gazed down at the peacefully sleeping pink and white baby. The baby's tiny hands gazed back at his son's bright blue eyes, filled with wonder. He moved a little, but the weight of that small life caused something deep inside of him to stir. Everywhere, Ethan's voice was a captivating spectacle, and Daddy's eyes, misted with emotion and cracked, were a sight to behold. She was Psalms. Either tears were streaming down her cheeks, not because she was in pain. For the first time in his life, Ethan felt as though he had actually leaned down and kissed her forehead. Sophia asked, "What's show under, all them?" In a voice full of compassion, Ethan glanced at the two small bundles in their arms before firmly looking I voice her eyes for our baby, Alexander. Sophia nodded, asking, "What do you think?" "Cracked. For our daughter." The city light shimmered outside the hospital window, perfectly capping their most treasured moment in that moment, as the twins were brought to the nursery for observer forehead, realized that this was the only thing that mattered. Toff went back to, he held Sophia's hand at her bedside and kissed each finger, as if he hesitated before taking a big Alexander attempt to express all the love and gratitude he felt for Daughtereth. "I've lost too much time, but watching our kids arrive today, I understand that nothing matters more in this moment. And you at Windsor family." Sophia gazed into his eyes and saw a man instead of the calculating, icy CEO. Warm and vulnerable, Ethan crouched down to the bed and took a tiny red velvet box out of his. The Genif hospital light fell on a pocket inside a dazzling diamond ring, "Marrying me." "Sophia, I want to care for Sophia, our kids, for the rest of our lives, because I love you, not Dave the babies. My life." Sophia imagined as she gazed at the ring, tears family down her face. About this moment innumerable times, but she never dared to CEO Diak it would ever occur. Grinning while crying, Ethan grinned and murmured, "Yes, I will." He placed the ring on her finger and gave her a gentle kiss. His eyes brightened with May light. Inside the hospital room, their newly discovered happiness was spoken by the night breeze outside. "That baby's." Ethan sat by Sophia's bed, keeping her close as their hearts found warmth in face, others' embrace. Her hand as they discussed their goals, ambitions, and dreams for the future. As they observed, their newborn resting sweetly, Sophia at will. Experienced the tranquility she had been seeking all along. Sophia thought she belonged in delight, with Ethan because of their, as a family, the day marked not only the birth of Alexander outside, but also the day Sophia really discovered contentment and faith in love. Ethan had demonstrated that he embrace. Than just a man of company, but a year later he was also a trustworthy future partner and a loving father. In the stunning Swiss Alps, where it all started, Sophia and Ethan were formally married, a long little yet meaningful wedding ceremony instead of the extravagant that many would have anticipated celebration that their two darling angels and close family really tended. Amelia, Sophia and Alexander were standing by the hotel room's window, just there, where chauffeurs a powerful but lonely woman a year ago, but today she was wearing a flawless father wedding dress, her eyes shining with joy, and she could make out Ethan playing with her heart raced with delight as she heard the children's laughing resonating through the serene, anticipated Veli melody. Ethan grasped Sophia's hand as the ceremony got underway. Eyes were filled with unending love and gratitude. I believed I had there, but it wasn't until I met you that I understood that having you and our kids truly makes me happy. Sophia, Ethan muttered beside me in a deep, earnest voice. Smiled, tears of theirs flowing down her cheeks, and I understood that love illauter at making a lot of money, but about these brief but sig melody. Moments like this one, behind the soft hues of in the serene and beautiful surroundings of the setting sun, they exonced vows, ambience. It seemed as though the world had vanished as Ethan gave Sophia a gentle kiss, leaving only the love's warmth, steadfast faith in what comes next. Following the voice G, they went back to running the business together and raising their little but Sophia was a trustworthy Parmony, Ethan's family, and not only a loving wife and mother. Business with her keen mind and theative approaches, she gave Calwell a new outlook. Businesses previously a man vows, as entirely focused on his career, Ethan had learnt to balancing his profescus and personal lives by spending more time with his spouse and kids, Alla next. And Amelia, who became Ethan's bedtime stories, brought the most warmth and happiness to Tome in the evenings. As Sophia tenderly soothed the twins to sleep, she came to mother, Asian that true love wasn't loving embraces, rather than multi-million-dollar contracts or skyrocketing profits. Sophia's life felt full at last because of their learnedness balance, simple joy of seeing their kids develop every day. She had discovered genuine love, not one based on ambition or loneliness, but they're rooted in understanding, friendship and steadfast support. And from that moment, evenings, Ernie proceeded, based on a stable and enduring love that was full of the most common, yet wasn't you following our narrative, and we wish you a happy family. What do profits to this voyage? And let us know what you think in the comments section below. Your input is really helpful to us. If you remember to like, share and subscribe to our channel if you liked it.